initiation in gangs, or whatever you want to call it. But
Right.
it's a bigger picture behind that.
Right. Exactly.
The automobiles that are being stolen has been brought someplace and dismantled. So who is buying these parts?
Correct.
Who has put the emphasis upon that in New Orleans that will cause these young men, and who are encouraging these young men to go out there and buy? So they're not doing it just based upon the fact that they want to go out there and jack somebody. It has to have some kind of benefit in it for them.
Exactly. Let me pause for a minute. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Instagram as well. This is Breaking Bread with Reverend Wallace and Bishop Sutton, having a candid conversation about community policing. I want to introduce Reverend Aubrey Wallace of the Heavenly Star Missionary Baptist Church in Marrero, and also he's the president of the Louisiana Coalition for Change. And, you know, as you were talking about the broad perspective of it, you know, a lot of people don't know, but you and I actually put together a document in concert with the consent decree under Louisiana Coalition for Change, under the admonishment of former U.S. Attorney James Letton and Raphael Gornechi with the Metropolitan Crime Commission. So there was boots on the ground, as Mayor Latoya Cantrell like to say, from leaders here in the city, clergy-driven, community-driven conversations that had already started. Now, this police chief, Sean Ferguson, who's a dear friend and brother, went around asking clergy to come up with something. The reason why I didn't move on it because the NOPD had never moved on what we already submitted. Dwayne Munch, who's the police chief in Westwego, then Superintendent of Police Personnel, Arthur Lawson, Mr. Christiana, Newell Norman, Sheriff Newell Norman at that time. All of these people were perceptive of it, but when we brought it to NOPD, there wasn't. So when you look at the community issues of policing from around the country, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Michael Brown, the list goes on and on. You know, the young man, Dwayne Wright in Brooklyn, Minneapolis yesterday. Police say she went for her taser instead for her gun. You know,
which is erroneous.
Erroneous, exactly. Who's at fault, Reverend Wallace, when you hear things of that nature?
Well, one of the things that we have a problem with is that we have no inroads to the sheriff's office when it comes to structure of how the department is set up, how the structure of leadership, demographics, and setting up. It has always been a perception in the black community that the police has been abusive.
Yeah.
That's true. That's a fact.
Right.
There's no assurance that when you try to come on the side of law enforcement to support them,
right,
they're going to be there for you.
Correct.
So
we have a law enforcement perspective problem.
Well, and that's the initiative that we brought about.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons you have municipalities, you have chiefs that are appointed by the mayor, and you have some that are elected officials. As long as they have a more of an elected official, they have a broader perspective in the community, they have a more influential area.
Correct.
So they involve themselves outside of their office with influence, so they can control certain things.
Right.
Legislatively.
Legislatively.
You know that the police chiefs from Baton Rouge, and I'm familiar with all those guys, and they're good people, but for their own purpose and their constituents and the people that stay in their respective area,
right,
business people and all such that they fight hard for thorough incarceration. And these people that run for office,
right,
either you're going to adhere to the perception that we have, or we're not going to support you.
Well, President Obama, he signed the Blue Life Matter, Blue Law Life, or whatever it was, in response to police killing. But a lot of people looked at that as, because I see the people that's viewing this and the people that's going to view this, I know how they're looking at this type of conversation. So we want to kind of put the issues out there. When President Obama signed that kind of law into play, or put that kind of initiative in, many people thought that was protection for the police department.
Right.
Here in New Orleans, where I think, the only jurisdiction that is still undergoing under the consent judge, because we had our issues here in New Orleans.
We need to be, because first of all, there have been a lot of misdeed by officers over the years, and you can't be mad at these young folks for not trusting law enforcement, because through just taught.
Right.
Some of them have seen some of the things that they've ministered over the years.
Correct.
And these are children that have grown up to be
Right.
grown men and women and have families, and so they understand
Right.
what type of treatment that we are accustomed to.
Correct.
So there's nothing unusual for a man to put his knee on this man's neck and try to get away. I mean, even the perception of what we see is no. I mean, you're telling me that the sky is pink, and I know the sky is blue, but you're trying to tell me we understand that this man, with all of the factual basis from all the professional people that told him that this man died because of this man, you know. But what it is that clergy, other clergymen in our community have not had a stern voice in the government of police. Now, we have good policemen. Don't take me
And you're a former police officer.
I'm former police, but we have good police officers. I stand with law enforcement 100%. I believe in the Constitution. I believe when we have these things that happen, I don't believe in tearing up the community. I believe in nonviolent protests.
So let's look at this here also. When they talk about defunding the police, because a lot of people don't know what defunding the police means. When they talk about defunding the police, what are they really saying?
Well, what you want to do, you want to take law enforcement and flip it to where it's just a courtesy call.
Okay.
I mean, they can come out, but they have no ability to do their job.
Okay.
We don't want to defund the police. We want the police to, they're the first responders. They need to be able to adequately do their job.
Correct.
And if you don't equip them adequately, more training needs to be sensitive training, ethical training,
right,
and on different issues. But
right,
you need to equip them. And
right,
the criminal on the street, he doesn't go to any church. He doesn't go to any institution of learning what morals is. He's
right,
out there to do what he got to do.
Right.
And by any means necessary, he was going to accomplish his objective.
Correct.
But these guys are out there, they have a guideline, they have a constitutional guideline they have to work by.
Right.
And sometimes they are outnumbered, they're outgunned.
Right.
And when you're in a position of falling in a hole,
right,
I mean, you got to use whatever instinct you have to survive.
Correct.
So, these men and women are good people. They made it swore to oath, they're professional. But over the years, it deteriorates. It's just like in ministry. I mean, you start out, you was enthusiastic when you first started out and excited. But after some years in the church, you find out, man, look, I wasn't offered this job to my worst enemy. Because what you got to deal with.
Correct.
On a continual basis.
Right.
I mean, people start out with you, but they don't always finish you. But the same thing.
We're going through that now.
That I see with law enforcement is that the problem is that it's a territorial thing with politicians, and certainly with those, the mayors. They like to have their hand around the thing because they like to get the stats that they're doing it. But the statistics always speak against their program.
Right.
I think Sean Ferguson stepped in and is more open and transparent than any of the chiefs that I ever seen.
Correct.
He has done a tremendous job of evolving this department into what it should be. He doesn't have the resources that he needs or the manpower, but he's doing a good job.
Well, it's just like what you say. When we finally get the train running right, it's just like the Bible would say. We have a shortage. So Jesus said, I would pray the Father. He would send laborers.
Right. But
here's the problem. The harvest is right, but the laborers are few. So when you get a good police officer who, utilizes training, maybe military training, whatever training that he's incapable of bringing to the table, then there's lack of funding. There's lack of police trust from the community. There's a lack of resources. There's slack in the legislature because the legislature runs the policing.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand. When you talk about community policing and you talk about the issues of police, you're talking about police unions, you're talking about the NRA, you're talking about all these military type performances that goes into place that writes the law and the how-tos for police.
Well, Bishop, one thing I've learned, and one that have worked in Jefferson Parish for 40-something years over there, doing a lot of stuff in Jefferson Parish, and I started from the bottom and built a rapport and a credibility with the people that I work with. Not liked by everybody, but doesn't bother me.
Right.
That's part of the process of the public domain. You don't have to always be accepted by people, but you still have to do what you have to do.
Correct.
The problem with our community is that we're not engaged.
Exactly.
we want the best, but we don't make the effort to see that it becomes the best for us. We start out. The only time we come out is when a police officer killed a black person.
Yeah.
It's racially, we just, if the guy not racist, we make him a racist.
We make him a racist.
But when we accept the fact that most of our young black men are being annihilated by each other on a continual rotational basis, day to day, year to year, month to month, everywhere you want to say it, and we accept it as just the norm. We don't protest that. And so it makes it hard for when an officer, and humanly, some of them make mistakes. They overreact, they do things that are stupid, certainly, but there are some restraints that we can have before that. That's what this initiative was about. Sensitive training.
And what we had wrote to NOPD, NOPD, Ronald Surpass, even sitting down with Sheriff Marlon Guzman and bringing him on board as relates to what could
FBI director, we're working with him.
Exactly, FBI director,
Justice Department,
Department,
from Washington D.C.
Dwayne Munch, the list goes on and on. But our perspective was community leader-driven engagement to go in with the police, clergymen, community leader, not to change the police's policy, but to introduce, we used to have Officer Friendly. And we'd go into the schools and he would, share the day-to-day practices. We used to have DARE, remember that? All these different initiatives that was funded by whomever was funding it to bring the children into perspective of what was happening. And this was because of high crime spot. But let's break away from New Orleans for a minute. When you look at cities like Minneapolis, when you look at Philadelphia, when you look at Kentucky, where Breonna Taylor family is and where she lived, when you look at, I think it's Florida where Trayvon Morton was, with Mr. Zimmerman. When you look at those types of places, for a long time, we in the South thought that those people up there didn't deal with racism. We thought, Florida, but, we thought that, if you go up north, you're okay. But there are people, because the perception still lives in America, that everybody black is doing crack, doing weed, walking around, no job, this, that, and other thing. And these people have set up police unions, neighborhood watches, and all these types of things to stereotype people that fit that type of background, and that's how you have these types of killings. And see, when you talk about defunding the police, these are the conversations that has to be happening to understand both sides, the community and the police.
I understand the camaraderie of police officers, and I certainly support that. But I'm also concerned, they have their old saying CYA, the acronym, what it's supposed to mean. You cover yourself.
Exactly.
We've had history in the city of New Orleans where you have two police unions, Hanover and Hanover. One black, one white.
Correct.
And it had always been that we have always had this colorization of the department where at the top of the head you might have a white superintendent, but you have some higher up blacks in certain respective areas. But the bottom line is that the mayor was the one that made the deciding factor of how the police department would operate. And the mayor didn't want no statistics of crime elevating and race, So whatever means necessary they had to do to suppress the crime.
But let's stop here. Pano and Hanover. One association for the black officer, another association for the white officer. Southern Baptist, the white Baptist church, National Baptist, the black Baptist church. So you see the perspective and the perception. The perception which leads to the perspective.
That's right.
It's just like this cup of coffee. This cup lets me know that coffee go in, and I can pick it up. Ain't no coffee.
Well, it's black, but when you put cream in it, what color
it comes?
And that's the perception that folks have about black people. You're not gonna change them from being black, but if you can add a little dimension to changing them from their perception. And the perception is out there that black men are just heinous, they're crime criminals, and the blacks. Dr. King, all of his life, he understood that what he was fighting for was enormously, astronomically against him, but he still went forward with his vision. He left a legacy of saying he gave his life for his brothers and sisters.
Right.
Today, we have people that serve in office on their own distinction of how they progress, not how the community progress.
Correct.
And this is why we got so many young men that are incarcerated, coming, probation, parole, or you're on drugs,
right.
You're unemployment, or you're dead. These
right.
are perceptions that are reality for our community as black men.
Exactly.
And we got leaders that will expound on how they're going to change. And when I look at the statistics of Louisiana, see, we 49 and 50, and just about, I think, third or 48, it lets me know when we go up there to the legislature, you want to follow some of your black politicians? Follow them to Baton Rouge and see what they're implementing up there and what they're fighting for, and come back and give you all of Milwaukee. Well, look at some of the legislative stuff that they stood for. See, I can pull the facts out on you.
And then
I
not
don't
only
talk
that,
about you. I know your record.
Right, and then not only that, in the legislature where, you would have a white politician from Metairie or from Monroe or from someplace in Louisiana, Winn-Dixie, they're fighting for their prospective place. And then you get somebody from Louisiana, from New Orleans, where we are, our demographic, and they're going along with that. Just like with the Blue Life Matter law. Trayvon Morton, Michael Brown, the guy out there in Baton Rouge, Alton Sterling, was shot. The police got him on the ground. He's handcuffed. Same thing with George Floyd. The video came out yesterday with George Floyd sitting on the ground by the stove, handcuffed. So all you need to do, get another officer to help you get him in the car.
But Bishop, let me tell you what's the problem. The first initiative in that thing that we talked about is divulging a panel that can look at the scope of the office.
Correct.
Psychologically, physically, mentally, financially. See how most of these guys are going through a lot of normal stuff because they're human.
Right.
But what primes these things is that we have a system that covers them.
Yeah.
We know they're abusive, they're aggressive,
right,
and they have done some things to people.
Right.
They have scars on them. They leave one department and go get hired at another department.
Go get hired to another department.
Because there's no factual record that follows them. When they leave New Orleans for doing the dirt they did here, they go join Minneapolis or Baltimore or New York, and they still have that same heart, hard heart towards black. So they're not going to treat you. The problem with New Orleans is that back in the old days, they call it containing the crime.
Correct.
All of the surrounding jurisdiction made sure that if these kids came from New Orleans, and you know the old saying with Harry Lee saying if you find 4 or 5 of them in the car, they probably up to something no good.
Right.
Because that was a perception.
But perception. So you made a very valid point though. You have one police officer that have served in one jurisdiction. He's done a few things. The police association, he's done some hideous things. The police association holds him in compass to that. He's okay. He's one of us. Okay. He leaves here and he goes to Slidell. Or he goes to same abusive record.
And he gets hired. And the thing about it is that these chiefs and these police and these officers, they don't worry about that because they want the protection and safety for their community.
Let's look at this. A case you and I worked on. That you know about. The young man texting about robbing someone. Right. The police, the guy in the neighborhood is watching him on his porch. Plus he have video camera.
Right.
He gets stopped by the police. The police manhandles him. The gun goes off. Now the thing that happened in the court, if you remember, it was the argument of who presented the gun first. But they know the guy had a gun on him because the white man in the neighborhood had called the police. Right. So then he shoots kills the police. And the neighborhood is outraged.
That's a free kill.
Right.
I call that a free kill.
Free kill.
Free kill.
Wow.
Anytime you have, and you may not want to believe it, but you have those sympathizers or those people that have that type of perception about Klans and some white supremacy, and you got some of these officers that are associated with that, your relatives or friends, or they be exposed to that. And what happens after a period of time, they get so desensitized with seeing black, they're arresting black and they're getting out of jail. So they build up that type of mindset that I really don't give a damn about them.
Exactly. And let me show you what it's trash. Let me show you how deep the perception is. We're live on Instagram and we're live on Facebook. You see this number here? 3 people watching. Now, if I had a majority Republican base, everybody would be watching. because the Republicans want to know.
What they say about Negroes?
Hold on a minute. Yeah.
Put it in the book.
What these Negroes doing talking about
Put it in
our
the book.
policing. You see the perception that we have as African American people? We are our own worst enemy. I say it on Sundays. I say it on Bible class night. When something is informative,
They will not engage.
we will not engage it.
We don't
Now
want to
we're talking about something that has been a skeleton that then got meat growing on it now.
Well, it's walking now.
It's walking, yeah.
It's a form of a reality that is prevalent, and it's actually had come to pass that these things will occur in our community, and the leaders that we have, they want to address it, but because of other purpose and other goals that they're trying to accomplish.
You see, what we do,
they avoid it.
right? What we do, we have people who are watching, and people who are looking. Now, you get a political candidate to run for office, and I'm going to get in trouble here, but I need to say this. They go get Big Frida or my friend around the corner, DJ Jubilee, to do a commercial for them, and guess what? In their mind, the black people are on board.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? The white politician, he comes and says, listen, I'm running for office, I'm going to fix this, that, and the third.
He goes to the church.
He goes to the black church.
Right.
Then he goes to the meetings over at Loyola and so on and so forth and get his money. You understand what I'm saying? But our perception, because you can't talk about the police association, you can't talk about Obama, you can't talk about Biden, you can't talk about the legislator when your area, you see, white folk get money and they put it in their neighborhood association.
Education.
They put it in education.
Office.
In the Southern Baptist Church, before they build a church, they build an education building first. First Baptist New Orleans out there, $90 million sanctuary. But that was the whole project. They spent $60 million in the education building, and $9 went on the education on the sanctuary itself. But you see the perspective where the power goes.
Well, Bishop, the problem is that, first of all, when I came up as a young man, the clergy wasn't as educated as these guys are today. They didn't have degrees. It was just to be a reverend. And the association, thank God for the many men that preceded us in the ministry. They left a great legacy. The greatest institution that we have is the black church. And it's a strong, vibrant, and it's alive.
But what happened to the black church?
Well,
and I'm glad you mentioned that.
When you take the black church and minimize it as hypocrites, and you know, we're hypocrites in everything else, but when somebody's child get killed in the neighborhood, this same hypocrite got to come in and do the eulogy.
All right, I know.
Because
they call me everything but a child of God. But when
it's all right.
These young men out here get killed, they knocking this door down. Well, we need you.
And you do a lot in the community.
Yeah.
My brother clergies are certainly working hard, and they do. But the church is set up to win souls, to prepare people for a common Savior. And there's a lot of things that we have in the church, components of the church that we have in ministries that outreach into the community. But you have people that sit in the church, say they know God, and won't give him his 10%. And they'll find biblical scriptures in reference to justify what they're doing.
Exactly.
You know, God changed not. You know, he said you're cursed. So who, you know, I look at the facts when I read. But what I'm saying in the community, the church and our clergy leaders are mute because
well, let's talk about
we
this.
fall under so many politicians
right.
will not allow the clergyman in their respective
but watch it. Since you're talking about the black church, just look at here in the city of New Orleans. And I want to make this clear because a lot of people don't know this. The Martin Luther King Commission is no longer ran by the clergy.
That's run by the city.
It's ran by the city.
And that's
and Dr. Martin Luther King,
weak individuals with special interests for themselves allow this thing, and it really transpired under the Mayor Landry administration.
Mayor Mitch Landry, correct.
I could say that he skyjacked it, the Martin Luther King SCLC event, and it's a sad thing to say.
And that goes back to what you said, the preachers, the black preachers not holding the white politicians accountable to what they say.
Well, when you're at Jezebel table, you can't.
Well, you know, Buddy Lee, was Foster Campbell, when he came down, and we were, you were there, we were out there at Duke Chase restaurant. And he said for a number of years how he got elected. He got elected because he went to the Black Baptist Church.
Right.
Okay? So if we're going to allow politicians legislators who have the power to change police unions, stop funding this and stop funding that.
Backbone, such.
Right. If we're going to allow you to come into our community in the church and talk, then we expect you to do something when a police, police have been doing this for a long time, killing our children inadvertently, as they would say.
This is what I believe. If a politician come to my church, I done did my due diligence. I know exactly what he's doing in the legislature.
Right.
I know if he was on the council, some of the things that he stood for.
Correct.
And I know if, how they said in Godfather, if your interest and my interest, they don't conflict together.
Yeah.
Well, I can't support you. Because what you're saying on a piece of paper is not actually what you're doing in Baton Rouge.
Correct.
And most of them just take a script that they file these people who do the image and everything and perception, and they throw that out there and thrust it out in the community and say, look, now, this is why I want you to vote for me.
Right.
But when you actually open the envelope up at like a little now letter, you pull it over, you got to pull all four corners to get to that now letter.
Right.
You got to evolve yourself with this individual that's running for. We have definitely two people running for a higher seat right now, and if I was to tell anyone before you vote, know who you're voting for.
Right.
Why you're voting for them.
And let's throw this out here too, because we talked about this on the phone. One campaign is throwing leaflets out or mailers out. This one was funded and supported by Bobby Jindal. This one is supported and funded by the Trump administration for Louisiana. Well, here's the thing about it. The name of the game in politics is smear, but getting your agenda passed. So whether it be Karen Carter Peterson, Troy Carter, both who I love, both who I've sat down with and have a good relationship with them, whether win, lose, or draw. Right. But the key to community policing, the key on the national, whether it is on the local platform, is to understand how policing works, how policing pays tribute to so much. So it's who you sending to Baton Rouge in Washington that has the key to handling and what I'm trying to say is dismantle. Thank you, Lord. Dismantling the white supremacist perspective of police officers.
Let me explain something for you before I go any farther. I went to Baton Rouge. Warrant. Superintendent Warrant was there. Troy Carter was trying his best to stop these guns from coming back into the community because they had this place out there selling these guns to all these people. Remember that? Right. Troy went up there and fought diligently, hard for it. He brought the superintendent up there, brought a lot of statistics and everything to prove that these guns were being sold to these kids at a pawn shop, which some of the local with him and other leaders, community leaders and religious leaders up there. He didn't have to take that initiative. I don't say anything bad about Karen Carter Peterson. I think she, at her time, did what she can do. But the perception up there in Baton Rouge is if it's anything for the city of New Orleans or down south, those boys up North Louisiana ain't gonna go with it.
They don't give a damn.
I think.
But while 60% of Louisiana economies come from New Orleans.
Yes, but because what I liked about Troy is that he was forthright. He took the thing that certainly caused a lot of friction with a lot of other people because it was dealing with these magazines that they were talking about getting rid of these type of automatic weapons, the AK and a few others that they were trying to get off the street. So he had the Legislative Black Caucus behind him, Randall Gaines and others that were supporting of him. The whole caucus was supporting him.
And a lot of people don't know much about Randall Gaines here in
But let me tell you something.
Yeah.
There was some of our local white politicians, I don't want to call them names because you can go pull the bill up and the legislation up and see those that we call our friends.
Correct.
When it came down to them to prove their loyalty to us, they went the other way.
Right.
But they'll come in your community and tell you, well, you know we that, but you know,
Right.
I got your record. Here, read that. You don't know me, remember that?
Correct.
See,
Correct.
because that's what I deal with, the facts. I don't want to hear what you're talking about you're going to do for me now, what you did for me lately.
We're talking today about community policing, and I see people are coming in and out of the chats and leaving comments. Community policing, I have today with me Jefferson Parish finest Reverend Aubrey Wallace, Heavenly Star Missionary Baptist Church President of Louisiana Coalition for Change, and also a former JPSO officer, and also a lobbyist in Baton Rouge for many things that is very valuable to our community. As we get ready to wrap up, because you know we can go all day with this here.
This is just the beginning of the topic.
This is the beginning of 3 phases of shows of videos that we're going to do on the basis of community policing. But the last part that I want to state, because we've talked about the legislature, we've talked about Washington, we've talked about President Biden, President Obama, Vice VP Kamala Harris, and even her having a track record of incarcerating black men who have been stereotyped by these police unions, by these people. When people talk about Kamala Harris, as you just said,
all of us have flaws.
But get the research on these people before you start praising.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Nope.
But the final piece, as clergymen and as pastors, what I like to tell our young people, and I like to tell my parents as a school teacher, parents, educate your children. My mother taught me, when you walk out this house, you're not guaranteed to come back. Right. The only way you guaranteed to come back is by the goodness of God and your wisdom that you use if the police stop you.
Well, one thing I can stand on is that's the biblical principles of what the Word of God says. You shall know the truth.
And yes, Lord.
And the truth shall what?
Set you free.
Not make you free, but set you free. Because if I make you free, somebody else will come back and tie me up.
Tie me back
set me free.
Set you free.
I cannot be.
Which meaning that it speaks of itself.
That's right. And what is that when politicians come to your community, black, white, whatever, and telling you how they're going to advocate on your behalf, find out the facts what they've already done. And you can determine if you're going to vote for them.
Right.
And don't be persuaded by these commercials, these little snips of things that they put on TV, character assassination of each other. I think Karen and Troy eventually going to be friends, but they're fighting for a job. But the fact is that look at whose record you can trust more than the other. That's why
Reverend Diane Stewart, one of my clergymen, one of the first ministers that we ordained in Destiny Institute, she wrote, police associations and unions should be abolished, and when they leave to work somewhere else, their record should follow. We just talked about that. That's one of the reasons why you have corrupt police. Here's the problem what was happening here in New Orleans, and a lot of people remember this. 6th District was the most corrupt police precinct in the city. And I don't give a damn if they don't like it. This ain't church. The 6th District Police here in New Orleans was the most corrupt precinct in the city. Right. We had 5 police chiefs that came out of 6th District. Because 6th District was known, if you want to be chief, lieutenant, and all the different areas of leadership, go to 6th. And in the 6th District, you had police officers that was, Master P talked about it in this movie, I'm Bobby. How they were distributing the drugs, how they was in domestic violence, they were beating their wives, and this, that, and the other thing. They were protected by the police union. And they were protected by Mark Morial, who we like to praise, who have, to me, been more detriment to this city than any mayor that we've had. The police was protected by the mayor. And they were protected by the legislature. Now, we like to pick on Mr. Harry Lee, God bless the day.
And I discussed it because I want you to know one of the things that I want to say about Harry Lee is that when I was, it happened at Mrs. Sanders' church over there in New Orleans, Tori Sanders. I was a permit as after Katrina's was the exception of this brick and bread came in to 205. We was at a forum and I was selected to be the president, East and West Bank, first time for the NAACP. I did the first criminal, because you came, same thing we talking about now, engagement with all of the law enforcement agents to tell them, because there were some things that were going on preceding that meeting that we had, what have been disclosed as the Dan Ziegler with Glover and all that there, the abuses that were going on. And it took a man from another state to expose the stuff that was going on. Not the FBI.
No.
And not the local news.
And I know who you're talking about.
Not the police department. It was being pushed under the rug. But because this man had a heart of some Christ-like belief, he exposed it to the social press.
Right.
They began to investigate. That's how that came about.
Correct.
But I want to say Harry Lee made some remarks, and certainly he did.
Well, Harry Lee was.
But I want you to understand.
Yeah.
I would rather have you to take your hood off and let me see who you are.
Exactly.
Than to operate with your hood.
That's it.
That's the simplest.
And that's how Harry Lee was.
And Harry Lee, no matter what you said about it, he did a lot of things and said a lot of things wrong. But he was the first one who would come to the aid of those that were in need in the black community.
You know, I sat with him right before he died.
He had his saying, and I respect it because I don't mother people. You have a right to express what you believe.
Exactly.
And that's what he believed. But the thing is that he didn't believe that just by himself.
Right. Exactly.
It was a lot of people in Jefferson Parish that supported him financially in that belief.
Because the
Same thing with Donald Trump today.
Because the stigmata was Harry Lee was the police chief that got it done. He was the police chief that protected his community. He protected his
interest is what people support.
Exactly. And he was undefeated.
And their interest was to contain crime and
right.
keep crime from escalating,
right.
and to keep it in a certain area and exclusively in the black area. And when you outer yourself and out of those black areas, I mean,
right.
Oswego had the thing that they did, Harahan,
right.
St. Bernard, and I could go on and on.
Right.
And all of the other parishes.
Right.
They let you know when you came through here. You better read,
right.
because you better run and read at the same time.
Run and read at the same time.
But you know, we as a black people need to get together and unify ourselves and get a better grip on our finance. We spend more money. We got all these stores that change stores in our neighborhood. That's why you can have Mr. Rousers. He made a big mistake, but he divulged what was already in his heart.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to protest it because what he said.
Right.
Because what he said was the doggone truth.
And it was his truth.
And for whatever wrong he did, it was some good in it.
Right.
But the Bible says you take both of them and you put them together and you're working for the good. So we're trying to work in this initiative for the good.
Well, we have to dispel, Reverend Wallace. We have to dispel the imagery that white folks, and I don't want to sound racist, but there are still white folks that don't like black people.
Sympathize.
You know, there's still white folks that don't care for us or who we are.
Well, let me go as far. They got some of us that only like each other.
Exactly.
So it's not nothing new. I mean, you got some of your own black folks that are demeaning to their own perception that they have.
Right, right. And so, you know, as it relates to where we stand,
we got away from our topic.
No. This is good because race plays a part in it, and stereotypes. Jesus said, "Salt
come out of those walls."
Yeah, salt that has lost its savor is nothing good to be trampled underfoot. That's why the politicians don't respect us. We even in this city, we're not together. I said yesterday, there's not one clergy person that have aided Destiny Institute to live. We have almost 20-some Baptist associations in the city, and all of them pledged to one conviction. The black church got to get back to its foundation and back to its part. Martin Luther King, Reverend Abernathy, Reverend Shuttlesworth, all those guys, when things was happening in these United States of America in the 60s, you can call them brothers. Reverend Abraham Lincoln Davis here in the city. You can call them guys, they were available. But we are not engaged in our own thing. When a police take her taser instead of her gun, or a gun instead of her taser, and shoot a black boy, we ready to march, scream, and holler.
On a misdemeanor style.
Exactly. But here's the thing, it's bigger than that.
But it's the norms. It's the perception.
The police
that she had perceived that he was already a threat before she stopped.
But let's look at the facts here too. He was, unlike George Floyd, he was already detained. He got away. So what we need to understand, he resisted and he drove off. So automatically you are open field, what they call open season. Wow. It's not right, but it is what it is.
They call it neutralizing the threat.
See, we don't like the truth.
The problem with us is it starts, basically, Bishop, it starts at home. When you have 13-year-old, I set the TV and everybody else sets the TV, sees your gun with the type of enormous weapon they have.
Right.
And to say that they can have and put a hand on, they have to have it somewhere secure where they can get it. And in hindsight, we would always think that it has to be somewhere in their home.
Right.
Because if someone called and said, we got to go on a drive, well, they can get it. They don't have to go run, look for you or me or to get it. It's right there.
It's right there.
I don't fault a lot of the single parents. I think they do a good job, but it's in the peer pressure of society that got them to where they are today.
Exactly.
You got more chance of going to jail than years to getting a certificate from high school.
Exactly.
You got more of a chance of dying than getting treated.
Right.
So the odds, the numbers are astronomically against the black man. When he go on the job, before he even get to the job, there's so many perception of person that's going to view him.
Right.
He got gold in his mouth. You know the stereotype stuff.
Yeah.
He got weeded hair. He got his panties hanging. If he can pick a shovel up, I wouldn't care if his underclothes showing, as long as he can do what I call him to do.
Right. You know, at one point in the city of New Orleans, and I'm going to deal with this too. Sewage and Water Board was the only place that black men used to go and get a job if they had a record.
Outsource that.
Yeah.
Because one thing I dealt with the council of Jefferson Parish about is when they would not hire black young men because of a prior conviction. Now, how can this person be a viable, functional person? He has a family. I mean, this happened 10, 15 years ago. He's not the same person.
Right.
Let's give him a chance.
Right.
I mean, that's the whole thing about God. God give all of us a chance.
Yeah.
And you know the old saying in black church, he's over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But society had, and Bill Clinton implemented the 3 strikes you out.
Mm-hmm.
Took the welfare and used it as a tool to even cripple us more. Right. So I'm not a Democrat.
And that was the 100,000 police.
I'm an independent.
Right.
And really, I don't have any party affiliation because I don't really think any of them doing anything for anybody. That's just my belief.
Without question.
You could talk about some of them don't walk it. So I vote based upon what I know, not what I hear.
Right.
Because you can say a lot of stuff to me, but when I pull your record up from Baton Rouge and see what you've been up there doing since you've been up there, it determines where I'm going to vote for.
Right.
Then and there.
We got 8 minutes, and I want to do a closing statement. We're going to be doing this for another 2 more sessions.
In depth.
In depth.
We have other people that will come on the show.
Right, and we will the next video. Right, the next video we will even have the document ready that we submitted to Dwayne Munch, Mr. Christiana, Raphael L. Gornechi, Ronald Surpass, and all these police unions and folks that the Louisiana Coalition for Change went and embraced during the Obama administration, doing the consent decree. But I want to say this: it's when we go back to teaching our children the basis. B.B. King in his last video that he did with Isaac Hayes, he said, in the music industry back in that day, it was known that a black man didn't walk in the concert hall in the front door. Yes. It was known that an artist didn't touch the white women. He said because Emmett Till was played in all of the back of our mind. When, what his name was, Maybelline, Chuck Berry, started openly dating, he and Sammy Davis Jr. started openly dating white women. They began to fear for themselves. You know, because these were guys that had the CBS, they had the status, they had the spotlight,
fame,
right? You know,
notoriety and everything.
But here's the thing.
But they were Negroes still.
Exactly. Chuck Berry and Sammy Davis Jr. dating white women. Ella Fitzgerald, who was was going over to London and England, still was walking through the back door of her concerts. So it's the perception, but it's also us understanding. As black people, as black pastors, as black clergy, we got to stand behind our people. Cut this foolishness off on Sunday morning, your church, my church. The reason why they are killing our black men is because we are divided on too much bullshit. I take care of this ministry. I say what I want. We are divided on too much bullshit. And we are not unified on nothing. Our children are dying. DMX died. Everybody that's black is saying why. You want to know why? Because we're divided on everything and we're not unified on nothing. Don't tell me about Jefferson Parish. Don't tell me about Chalmette. Don't tell me about St. Tammany Parish. Because you're not going over there in them white folk territory doing no any doggone thing. They have told you if you move over here, you abide by my rules, you do what we say. So why in the hell, with all of this still going on, Reverend Wallace, in 2021, we are not unified?
Because of the perception and the image that has been depicted to us. The old saying, the Willie Lynch, you want to keep the people divided.
The Willie Lynch syndrome. Yeah, exactly.
The Willie Lynch syndrome.
Yeah.
And one of the things, the reason, voteless people is a powerless.
Voteless people, yeah.
You know,
we're sending people.
We don't go to council meeting.
Right, no.
We don't go to recreation meeting for the parks and know about millage or anything like that.
The young man on the Juan LaFonta commercial, he said, I used him as my attorney because he came to my church.
Right.
You didn't go down to the Louisiana Supreme Court to see the track record. And this is not against Juan LaFonta. I'm not dogging him. I don't know him personally. But when you select an attorney, when you select a politician, you go and do the work.
Well, history will repeat itself. If it's stupid from the beginning, it'll be stupid at the end, huh?
My God.
But you get the result that you work for.
Right.
If you don't have the understanding of who you're going to set in front of you to represent you,
Right.
then you can be surprised.
Right.
What folk will do when they get to where you think you put them.
Right.
They go the other way.
Right.
So, but if you know they have a proven track record of doing what they say they're going to do, or try and make an effort,
Right.
then you can support them.
Amen.
I would say different to some of the people that have been injured by decisions some of them have made.
Correct.
Enormously injured.
Right.
The school teachers is one of the reasons that Karen Carter Peterson is being looked at in such a scope because of the damage and the loss of so many people of pension and
Right.
Years of service. And now look what we got kind of public school system we got in the city of New Orleans
Right.
now. So they hold that against her.
Right, the charter system that we're working, and I want to give it to Erase the Board, my friends, Amtrees Colward, Ashana Bygar, Dr. Wyatt, Leroy, Brother Leroy, I can't think of his last name, but all these guys that are working with Erase the Board to dismantle the charter system because of poor understanding, poor judgment, poor knowledge of our people. And now our children, they were talking about the lottery system. That's what the one app is. So not to get on that, but today's show was, opening up the discussion about community policing.
We got issues.
How we've gotten here, how to fix it. I thank God for my guest today, my
Thank
friend,
you. God bless you, brother.
Pastor Aubrey Wallace, Louisiana Coalition for Change, the Heavenly Star Baptist Church. And a lot of people don't know this. You're about 3 weeks or 4 weeks of bearing your wife.
Yes, sir.
And so we want to continue to pray for you and to thank God. Lady Wallace, Lady Rosalind Wallace is with the Lord.
Thank the Lord.
And
Yes,
Heavenly
Lord.
Stars going forth and so on and so forth. So we thank you today for joining us. We was going to do a little bit more, but the technology started bothering us, so we had to switch at the last minute. But next week will be much more, much greater.
You got the rice today, but you get the gravy with it next week.
Amen.
And then we'll put the meat on it after that.
Stay tuned for the gravy. Yes, ma'am.
Amen.
All right.
God bless you and God keep this my prayer.
Wish me that.
Amen.
That was good. Yeah.
And swallow them pills for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Let them swallow that for a little while, Bishop.
Yeah.